For years, I cared for her, comforted her, loved her like she was my own mother. Even as my husband drifted away, I stayed. But one morning, she left her phone unattended on the kitchen counter. I pressed play and heard her voice laughing. With him, calling me a naive little servant, plotting what they'd do once I was out of the picture. Have you ever realized that the ones you sacrificed everything for were secretly erasing you? Stay with me. What happened next was something they never expected. The kettle clicked off with a soft pop, steam curling upward like the weary breath of a forgotten soul. I poured the hot water over the chamomile, watching the leaves unfurl as if trying to remember life itself. Eleanor liked it with just a drizzle of honey, enough to soften the bitterness, but not drown it. I stirred slowly, careful not to tap the spoon against the porcelain. She hated that sound. That fragile pearl-colored teacup sat perfect after all these years. One day, out of nowhere, Eleanor said it was the only cup that didn't tremble in her hand. I'd clung to that foolishly, like it meant something deeper, like it meant she truly saw me. I handled it like priceless china from a museum shelf, too fragile for the truth. The sun had barely risen, but I'd been awake for hours. Kyle was gone early again, his shoes still by the door, betraying the lie of his text. Carrying the tea on a tray, I moved down the hall, my feet memorizing every creaky floorboard, every threadbare patch of carpet. Eleanor's door was ajar. She was awake, propped up just how she liked. 2 pillows behind her back, one under her knees, fluffed minutes before. Her eyes flicked toward me. No smile, just a blink of acknowledgement. "Good morning," I said, placing the tea on her side table. She didn't respond. Her voice had been stolen by the stroke. Her words came now in strained whispers or shaky texts, but she always made herself understood. I adjusted her lap blanket. "You slept okay?" Her phone buzzed once beneath the pillow. I slid it out, set it beside the tea. She tapped the screen. Without looking my way, just once, and I caught a glimpse. Fine. The same as every morning. After helping her sip the tea, I moved to her medication tray. 7 bottles lined like soldiers. I crushed pills, broke ones that didn't dissolve well, slipped the rest into applesauce. She took it all without fuss, eyes glued to the muted TV. I no longer minded the silence. It had become the soundtrack of our mornings, soft, tired routine. Sometimes I could almost convince myself we were close. Then the tray was empty, the tea gone, and she gave a small nod, my cue to retreat. Back in the kitchen, everything was spotless except the phone, still on the edge of the counter, an unusual oversight for Eleanor, who guarded it like a lifeline. The screen glowed, open to voicemail. I didn't touch it, but then I heard it. Her voice, strong and clear, not the fragile whisper I knew. She was laughing, cruel and cold. She wears pearls like she thinks she's someone important. Bless her heart. She has no idea she's just free labor in a cardigan. I froze. Then came Kyle's low chuckle. "You think she suspects?" "Eleanor again. Please. She's too busy playing Florence Nightingale. Soon she'll be out of the picture." The message cut off. The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at the phone as if it might apologize, but it remained blank. Innocent. Yet it had just unraveled every thread I'd stitched into the life I'd been desperately patching together. My hand hovered uncertainly over the counter, heart burning. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I just picked up the spoon again, washed and dried it mechanically, like someone who'd forgotten how to break. The teacup sat in the sink, steeped with tea. I turned on the faucet, letting warm water run, steam rising as I rinsed it, pretending nothing had changed, though everything had. I placed the pearl cup on the drying rack and stood motionless, staring at the droplets clinging to porcelain as if searching for answers I wasn't ready to hear. Behind me, Eleanor's faint TV murmured, a rerun of some old talk show she pretended to like. The air felt different now, colder. Not in temperature, but in presence, like an unseen shadow had slipped inside and refused to leave. I wiped my hands on the towel, glanced toward Eleanor's slightly ajar door. Every detail suddenly felt sharp, alive. The creak of the floorboard under her bed, the steady rhythm of her breath, The way she took pills when no one watched. No witness to confirm she swallowed them. I told myself to stop overthinking, but that voicemail lingered in my mind. I turned off the kitchen light and moved to the living room, picking up my notebook, not to write, but to hold something solid. From the hallway, I watched Eleanor sitting, upright in her recliner, eyes closed, fingers curled tightly around the pearl teacup I'd poured less than an hour before. No tremor, no hesitation. She lifted the cup smoothly, drank, then gently set it back down. The same cup she once said was the only one she could hold steady. Then, the sound of Kyle's car in the driveway. Suddenly, her shoulders slumped. Her head tilted slightly, her grip loosened, and as he opened the front door, she dropped the cup, deliberately, loud enough for sympathy, but not enough to break. "Mom," Kyle called from the entryway. Eleanor sighed, fragile yet fierce, like she was summoning strength from the depths of frailty. "In here," she whispered, voice like cracked glass. He rushed in, tossed keys on the sideboard, bent beside her. "You okay?" She nodded weakly, eyes darting toward me. I stood at the edge of the hallway, barely in frame, frozen. "She's tired today," I said, voice calm, steady. Kyle gave a distracted thanks, looking through me like I was a nurse on call, not his wife. I turned away, swallowing the storm inside. Back in the kitchen, I sat at the small table, opened my notebook. The blank lines stared back, but the words came anyway. June 11th, 3:42 p.m. Witnessed Eleanor lift teacup unassisted, no tremor. Dropped it seconds before Kyle entered. Spoke clearly beforehand. Faked fragility upon his arrival. I underlined it, then added a memory. Last Thanksgiving, Kyle's cousin on speakerphone. Eleanor laughed full and clear, then whispered when I walked in, excusing it as a good day. I closed the notebook, hand resting on the cover. Recognition bloomed inside me, not just suspicion. The way Eleanor resisted physical therapy, but only with me. The way she insisted I help with every bathroom trip even when her chart said she could manage short distances with a walker. The small, guilt-laden looks. The privacy she demanded from Kyle when I entered a year ago. I might have dismissed it as insecurity or stroke complications, but now it felt deliberate, engineered. The doorbell rang, startling me. Kyle opened the door to a delivery man with a small package. He signed, nodded politely, shut the door. "What's that?" I asked. "Mom's vitamin order, probably. She said she was low on B12. That was news to me. I waited until Kyle disappeared upstairs, then looked at the box. Eleanor's name, same Amazon account I managed, but I hadn't ordered it. The sender was a wellness store I'd never heard of, with a handwritten label, "Custom blend per voice request." Voice request, so she could call? I stared at it, searching for answers that didn't come. I reached for Eleanor's phone on the charger by her recliner. Eyes closed, pretending to nap, she didn't stir. I didn't open messages or photos, just glanced at the lock screen call log. Kyle's name, 5 calls yesterday, 1 just before midnight. A text preview beneath, "She's still playing house. I'll handle it soon." My breath caught. Handle? It soon. Like I was a mess to be cleaned up and tossed aside. I stood trembling, not from fear, but from the effort not to shatter the phone against the wall. I returned to the kitchen, opened my notebook, and wrote, June 10th, 11:02 p.m. Eleanor texted Kyle, "She's still playing house. I'll handle it soon." Beneath it, I noted the late-night calls between them, calls I'd never heard Kyle make, certainly not when I was near. Then something inside me snapped. Not tears or rage, just a cold, bitter clarity. I'd been deliberately kept in the dark. I spent the afternoon cleaning fiercely, scrubbing even spotless surfaces, vacuuming the hallway just to avoid her eyes. When Eleanor finally woke and limped to the bathroom, dragging her foot like lead, I knew. It wasn't the weakness I'd believed it to be. It was something far more dangerous. After dinner, Kyle retreated to the garage to sort through his tools, and Eleanor slipped quietly back to her room. I peeked in once to bring her tea, but she didn't look up, just extended a trembling hand. I placed the cup gently in her grasp, watching her fingers shake just enough to keep the act alive. I nodded politely, closed the door softly, then pulled out my phone. From the hallway vent, I started recording. There she was, Eleanor, sipping. The tea with steady hands, no tremble, no weakness, just a woman who knew no one was watching. I stopped the recording, saved the file, and exhaled deeply. This was no longer a fight for survival. It was a battle of strategy. That night, I set my alarm early, made a mental checklist, and called in a favor from an old friend at a security shop. The next morning, as sunlight spilled across the guest room's bookshelf, I climbed onto a chair and concealed a tiny black camera in the corner, perfectly angled to capture the chair, window, and Eleanor's bed. I stood frozen in the silence, not just the quiet of the room, but a stillness inside me, the kind that settles when truth starts sinking into your bones. For 3 days, I faded into the background like wallpaper, moving softly, speaking less, letting Eleanor believe I was slipping back into the role of devoted nurse and patient wife. But each afternoon, when she retreated to the guest room for her rest, I watched the footage. It came back clear and undeniable. Day 1, she walked without her cane, steady and unshaken. Day 2, she laughed and joked over FaceTime, her voice smooth and sharp with no hint of pain. She even tucked a curl behind her ear and winked at the camera, unaware she was being filmed by the wrong lens. Then came the clip that shattered me. Day 3. She stood before the mirror, practicing her limp with theatrical pity, drawing out the vowels in a breathy, fake plea. Poor me. I just want peace. I just need help. And then she dropped the act, scoffing. Let her change my bedpan one more time. God, she's so stupid. I didn't cry. I watched that scene again, and again, like a surgeon studying a tumor before making the cut. That evening, Kyle mentioned that his sister Dana was hosting a small anniversary dinner. Just family, he said, flipping salmon with casual ease, and suggested Eleanor and I come along, hoping it would do her good to be around people. Eleanor, already slipping into the fragile, sickly tone she reserved for Kyle, agreed hesitantly, blaming migraines and exhaustion. The next afternoon, I slipped the USB from my laptop into my purse's zipped pocket. Kyle picked out a bottle of wine to bring, and Eleanor arrived at Dana's house in a wheelchair, an empty prop she hadn't needed in 6 months, draped dramatically in a beige shawl, eyes closed as if preserving her strength for sainthood. The house buzzed with bright, cheerful chaos, scents of barbecue mixing with vanilla candles, faces full of praise and sympathy. I smiled politely, but inside I clenched my teeth until I thought they'd crack. Kyle's cousin Todd offered me a drink, concerned at my pale face, but I brushed it off and slipped into the kitchen for air. That's when I heard it, from the pantry door left ajar, a voice not weak or frail, but cold, smooth, confident. Eleanor whispered, "She thinks I need her. It's laughable. I'm just waiting for Kyle to grow a spine. I want her gone before Christmas." Those words bled into me like poison, sharp and cruel, reducing me to a witness of the house's darkest secrets. My fingers moved without thought, clutching the USB, a small key holding the power to unlock a decade of lies and manipulation. I waded through the forced smiles, saccharine toasts, and the group photo by the fireplace. Then, as the room gathered for cake and the sing-along began, I slipped the USB into the living room TV's hidden port. The footage played immediately. No menus, no warnings. Eleanor standing tall, voice ringing clear as she mocked me, laughed over FaceTime, scoffed at my stupidity, and practiced her limp. Gasps erupted. Dana stepped forward, trembling. Is this real? Is this a joke? Eleanor's eyes widened in panic as she clutched her chest, gasping for breath, but no one moved. Not Kyle. Seriously? Dana snapped. You're really going to fake a seizure now? Eleanor's wild eyes met mine, but I offered no tears, no triumph, only silent resolve. I grabbed my coat, left without a word. Kyle stood frozen, saying nothing, and I didn't look back. By the time they noticed I was gone, I was already driving away, carrying my dignity beside me and a plan tucked in the glove box. The heater in my car sputtered its last warmth as frost crept up the windshield. Outside, the quiet hum of streetlights met the occasional bark of a dog and the distant shuffle of bundled pedestrians. I parked outside Nia's office, third-floor corner unit, spotless windows, and didn't call ahead. I didn't want to talk yet. I just needed to be near someone who didn't lie to my face for years, who didn't pretend it was love. The USB glowed in my cup holder like a smoldering ember, a tiny device that shattered a decade of gaslighting. Kyle's family had drunk Eleanor's fragile matriarch act like sweet summer tea, but that night the truth played in 1080p. Her walking, laughing, mocking voice clear and cruel. This was no mere manipulation, it was calculated warfare. I hadn't planned to leave the party without explanation, but looking at the pale faces and chaos unfolding behind me, I felt something I hadn't in years release. No sobs, no screams, just quiet tears falling onto the USB like baptism. I no longer knew where home was. The house was full of echoes and lies, Kyle probably packing, Eleanor's meds untouched if she even needed them. The truth was mine now, heavy and silent in my palm. By 7:30 the next morning, my knuckles were numb from cold when I knocked on Nia's office door. The lights were on early as always. She opened it with a soft, unreadable gaze. "Figured you'd come eventually," she said, stepping aside without questions. Warmth hit me first, jasmine and herbs, and she motioned toward the couch. I sat, silence hanging between us until she passed me a mug of chamomile, no milk, 2 sugars, the way I liked it when we were roommates after college. We didn't speak for a while until I finally whispered, "They almost made me believe I was crazy." Nia blinked slowly, steady. "You're not. You never were." I pulled the USB from my coat and held it out. This proves it." She took it gently, like fragile glass. "Want me to watch it now?" "Not yet," I said, voice barely a whisper. "But I need help. Real help. Not just comfort." Nia didn't flinch. "You want legal backup?" "Yes, not revenge, safety. Clarity. If they try to twist this on me again, I want to be ready." Without hesitation, she rose and retrieved a worn leather business card. "There's someone, Kayla, specializes in elder care fraud and marital asset disputes. She does pro bono cases like this." I took the card, the weight of the name solid, and heavy in my hands. Within hours, I found myself sitting across from Kayla in a quiet corner of a downtown coffee shop. She was tall, sharp-featured, wrapped in a coat that surely cost more than my car, but her tone was warm and steady. "Tell me what you've got," she said, notebook open. Calm and careful, I laid everything out. No tears this time, just cold hard facts, names, dates, medical inconsistencies, financial records. The way Kyle's credit card showed recent charges for Eleanor's nurse, who didn't exist. The deleted messages on my phone, probably accessed by Eleanor when I wasn't looking. When I mentioned the flash drive, Kayla raised an eyebrow. "You still have it?" I pulled it from my coat. "Everything's on here." She nodded slowly. "Good. Don't send it anywhere yet. Back it up twice and keep it offline." That night, holed up in Nia's guest room, I backed up the files onto an encrypted drive and a USB I kept hidden. One taped under the kitchen drawer. No longer an amateur. By midnight, I'd built a fortress of spreadsheets, timelines, screenshots, and notes, meticulous bricks in a wall separating me from whatever they planned next. Then, at 1 a.m., as I was highlighting inconsistencies in Kyle's last email, Nia knocked and stepped in with her phone. "Lena, you need to see this. A court docket entry filed 3 days ago. Divorce, plaintiff Kyle Marin, defendant Lena, Marin, process server assigned." I stared at the screen in stunned silence. "He filed before the party," I whispered. "Looks like it," Nia said quietly. "I never got anything." "Eleanor," we said in unison, and suddenly everything clicked. The sweet voice, the concerned tone. Kyle just needed time. Eleanor knew it was already done. I didn't cry or scream. I just closed the laptop and sat very still. "He wants to break me," I said. Nia sat beside me. "Then don't let him." I nodded. For the first time in weeks, I meant it. The next morning, I asked Nia for a favor. A room with a hidden mic where Eleanor would walk in thinking she was in control. By sunrise, Nia had cleared a small conference room on the second floor of her firm. Quiet, tucked away, perfect for the weight of everything I'd kept bottled. Inside, we tested the mic hidden in a ceramic lamp, adjusted the lampshade so the audio would bounce clearly. The walls were soundproof, but the silence felt sacred, like a silence you choose, not one that traps you. 2 days had passed since I showed up at Eleanor's building. I hadn't gone home. I didn't want to be tracked. I used a burner phone Nia got me from a nearby convenience store. She was calm, no lectures, just quiet support and a box of mint tea. At noon sharp, I sent the text, "Eleanor, I'd like to talk, just us. No lawyers, no drama. I'll explain everything. 2 p.m., come alone." 10 minutes later, her reply, "Fine, don't waste my time." Not even a hello. At 1:45, Nia had said everything. I sat at the far end of the room, a steaming tea kettle beside me and 2 cups, one plain white, the other blue porcelain. I poured from the mint sachet Eleanor once mocked me for drinking. "You still drink that stuff?" she sneered at Christmas. Brunch, wrinkling her nose like it offended her senses. Today, it was the only flavor on the table. At 2:03, Eleanor arrived, hair styled perfectly, lipstick too red for afternoon, sunglasses pushed up like a crown. She walked in like she was visiting a lesser realm. "I assume you called this to apologize," she said, lips curling into a smug smile before the door even closed. Nia nodded politely, introduced herself simply as a friend, then stepped out. I gestured to the seat across from me. She didn't hesitate, comfort and confidence radiating from her like poison. I pushed the tea toward her. "Still clinging to your herbal nonsense, I see." She chuckled mockingly. I said nothing, waiting, until she took a sip, her lipstick leaving a red ring on the rim. "I want to ask you something," I said, "and I want you to answer honestly. Just this once." Eleanor leaned back, amused. "By all means, darling, unload your soul. Why did you fake your condition?" Her fingers tightened on the cup. "Excuse me?" I didn't repeat it, just held her gaze. She chuckled again, softer this time. "You really don't get it, do you? Help me understand." She sighed, crossing her legs. "Kyle was never going to leave you. He's too soft. I had to light a fire under him, so yes, I gave him a little nudge. You were a placeholder. By Christmas, you were supposed to be gone." I stayed silent, watching. She kept going, voice dripping with contempt. "Honestly, I was tired of pretending to like you. I knew he was unhappy. I knew you'd cling on forever, playing martyr with your recycled morals. You think he didn't notice your pathetic budgeting? Your old sweaters? Please, Lena, you were boring. Dumb enough not to see he needed more." The word dumb echoed in the room longer than it should have, like a knife twisting. "You forged the delay notice too, didn't you?" I asked. Eleanor's surprise was brief. "Well, someone had to protect his assets before your civic duty kicked in." I didn't flinch. I pulled a neatly printed transcript from my tote and placed it on the table. She didn't look at it. "Not yet," she said. "This meeting," I said slowly, "has been recorded in full. You just confessed to perjury, elder fraud, and interfering with legal service of process." Her face shifted. Not in fear, not guilt, but pure rage. "You're bluffing," she hissed. I nodded toward the lamp. She stood so fast, the chair screeched. "You set me up." "No," I said, standing. "You walked right in like you always do, assuming you held the leash." She lunged for her purse, probably her phone. I opened the door. Nia stood there. "Let her make her calls," I said calmly, "but don't let her leave, not until she listens to herself." Nia clicked a remote, and Eleanor's own voice filled the room, soft, clear, cruel. I didn't stay to watch. That wasn't the point. Downstairs, I called the elder care attorney, told him everything, sent the audio, transcript, screenshots of forged documents, power of attorney misuse. Within the hour, subpoenas, emergency hearings, and complaints were moving. I didn't ask how long it would take. I just asked what I needed to protect, my name, my share, my peace. That evening, back at Nia's, I sat on the back porch, staring at the neighbor's wind chime dancing in the breeze. At 7:26, my phone buzzed. Kyle. I let it ring, watched it go to voicemail. For once, I wasn't the one being silenced. I didn't rush to listen. Poured herbal tea, simple, grounding, and stepped onto the little screened porch of the Airbnb. The cicadas hummed low in the trees, and the sunset painted the Ohio sky lavender and rust. Then I pressed play. Kyle's voice came soft at first, cracked as if he'd been crying or rehearsing. Lena, I don't even know where to begin. He breathed heavily. I didn't know what Eleanor was doing. She told me you were difficult, dragging things out. I didn't know about the forged delay or the power of attorney. I thought you were hurt, maybe angry, but not that she was lying to me. I closed my eyes. He always made himself the confused one, the victim of others' choices. His voicemail dragged on, apologies, excuses, wrapped in desperation. I never wanted it to be this ugly, he said. Can we just talk? Just you? And me. No lawyers, no recordings. I'm scared. I'm confused. I don't even recognize my life anymore. He stopped. Then, like casting one last bait, whispered, You know I never stopped loving you, right? I let the silence stretch, then deleted the message. Didn't call back. Didn't write. I forwarded everything, voicemail, transcript, forged documents, to my attorney, Paula. By midday, she'd filed a notice to preserve Kyle's financial records and scheduled a motion to secure our assets before anything disappeared. She added Eleanor's name to a growing list of suspects in elder fraud. By late afternoon, I shut my computer and exhaled for the first time in weeks. But it didn't last. Just as I stepped from the shower, hair still dripping, I heard tires crunch on gravel. Glanced out the kitchen window, Kyle and Eleanor. I didn't move. Wrapped in a towel, I walked to the front room where Paula was waiting, calm and ready. We'd been going over documents earlier. She'd stayed. The storm wasn't over, but this time I was standing my ground. He didn't knock. He just swung open the screen door and shouted, Lena! Behind him, Eleanor smirked, looking like she'd stepped right out of a boutique photo shoot, arms crossed, weight shifted onto one hip. We're not here to fight, Kyle said quickly. I thought maybe we could talk face to face, sort some of this out without dragging in the legal mess. Eleanor cut in sharply. Oh, please. She's probably loving this. Lena always had a flair for the dramatic. I stepped forward slowly, calm and steady. We are face to face, I said, locking eyes with Kyle. But there won't be any sorting out here. Paula stood behind me, handing Kyle a folder. Cease and desist, she said firmly. And a formal notice. Your presence here is unwelcome without prior coordination through counsel. Further contact may lead to a restraining order. Kyle blinked, stunned. A restraining order? Lena, come on, she's bluffing. Eleanor snapped. She always folds when things get real. I tilted my head, studying her face. You lied under oath. You forged documents. You turned my life into a twisted performance piece. But the curtain is coming down, Eleanor. Kyle took a hesitant step forward. Lena, I didn't know. I cut in, voice low but sharp. That's the thing. You never wanted to know. You looked away because it was easier. You let her spin the story while I disappeared into the background. And now, because I stopped being silent, you're scared. Eleanor scoffed. Oh, wow, is this your Oscar speech? But her voice cracked just a little. I met Kyle's eyes one last time. The woman you protected lied for sport. The wife you ignored recorded the truth, and you chose your side. Then I shut the door. They didn't knock again. I watched them retreat to the car, Kyle rubbing his temples, Eleanor pacing and gesturing wildly. The car door slammed, then silence. Later, after Paula left, I turned off the porch light, brewed myself a decaf, wrapped a scarf tight, and walked down the path behind the cottage to the quiet lake. No motorboats, no noise, just water, moonlight, and frogs croaking softly. Sitting on the weathered bench, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Kyle's contact. the photo of us from a long ago summer still there. Then I hit delete. My hands were steady. Tears came, but they were quiet, older, coming from a place that had accepted the past and was ready to step forward. Crickets hummed behind me as I sat until my coffee cooled, my eyes dried, and stars blinked awake. The next morning, Paula called. Emergency hearing scheduled, financial hold granted, DA requesting the recording for charges. But I wasn't thinking about court. I was thinking about an old studio I hadn't visited in years, the place where I used to paint before my world shrank around Eleanor's wheelchair. The neighborhood had changed, new cafes, murals, the buzz of city traffic, but the red brick building looked the same, weathered and worn. I paused at the blue door, key feeling foreign and heavy in my hand, then stepped inside. The smell of dust, wood, turpentine filled the air. Light filtered through the skylight just like before, soft and golden. My boots echoed across the paint-splattered floor. In the corner, my old easel stood folded, waiting, and on a hook, my brown wool coat, smelling faintly of cinnamon and oil. Paint. I didn't realize I was crying until I saw the wet spots darken the collar. Muscle memory took over. I unwrapped a blank canvas, dusted it gently, set it on the easel, arranged the paints. My first brushstroke trembled, but the next grew steadier, the third deliberate. I wasn't painting to forget. I was painting because I had survived. Hours slipped by unnoticed. I brewed tea from a forgotten tin, the bitterness grounding me. Near noon, a knock surprised me. A courier handed me a flat envelope, no smile, just a nod. The law firm's return address hit me like a weight. Kyle's. The envelope was thin but heavy with unspoken things. I opened it at my work table. The divorce settlement, signed and final. My lawyer had demanded full transparency, and Kyle had complied. Stocks, accounts, properties, all laid bare. Tucked inside was a smaller envelope, handwritten, my name, slanted and careful. I hesitated, then opened it. Lena, I watched the whole tape. I heard every word. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve you. Thank you for not destroying me when you had every reason to. I read it twice, not out of doubt, but to feel the weight. It didn't make me angry or pity him. It created a quiet distance, like looking through frosted glass. There, but unreachable. I found a ceramic dish and struck a match, watching his words curl into ash, not in bitterness, but because his story was no longer mine. I added the ashes to the corner of my painting, a shadow of smoke beneath a sweep of gold. Late afternoon light slanted through the window, soft and perfect. I wiped my hands and turned my phone on. 15 unread messages, none from Kyle, but one from my lawyer. It's done. You're fully protected. Eleanor's under formal inquiry. The Department of Elder Affairs caught her misuse of power. I stared at the screen, then switched it off. No celebration, no cheers, just silence. Just me. I finished the painting at dusk. One last stroke of deep blue, signed it Elsie, and leaned it by the window for the city to see, even though I wasn't ready to show it yet. The door creaked open. Nia came in with 2 cups of jasmine. Tea, the same tea Eleanor once called overrated floral water. You didn't text back, so I guessed, she smiled. We sat on the floor, old friends talking about colors, art, and the truth that people don't always change, but we can. Before she left, she pulled out a flyer for a local gallery show. You should come. Better yet, submit something. I folded it and tucked it in my coat. I'm not ready, I said softly, but I'm not hiding anymore. She nodded, understanding, because she knew. That night, I dreamed of a woman walking away from fire. Not angry, just free. The next morning, I drove to the assisted living facility, light low and golden like autumn honey. I didn't bring flowers or accusations, just a photo album tied with worn green ribbon. Madison at the front desk told me Eleanor was quiet, mostly staying in her room. I waited by the lobby aquarium, watching a single orange fish circle a fake castle. The nurse led me down the soft-lit hallway to room 214. Eleanor sat in a recliner, staring at a bare tree, her hair gray and limp, face pale and drawn, legs wrapped in a fleece blanket. She sneered faintly. Come to see what you've done? I sat across from her, placing the album in her lap. I didn't come to argue, just to remember before it's gone. She flipped through the pages slowly, eyes moving but face frozen, then stopped on a photo of us by a lake, her holding a hot dog, me with sunburnt cheeks grinning. She whispered, I was scared. The album lay open. Her hands trembled. I hated needing anyone. You were so capable, so independent. I hated how easy you made it look. For a while, I got to pretend I mattered, that I had purpose. Then the diagnosis came, and I was just a burden. You kept shining, and I hurt you because you were there, because I knew you'd take it. Her voice cracked. I held her gaze, steady. Do you hate me? She looked at me, eyes glassy. No, I said quietly. I don't think about you enough. Silence stretched. Heavy, not angry, just done. I left her room and stepped into the soft dusk. The air was sharp but grounding, proof I was still breathing. I drove past our old house without hesitation. The road curved away, and I let go. 1 month passed without courtrooms, lawyers, or crisis calls, just silence. In that silence, I found paint under my nails, the smell of linseed oil, late-night playlists drifting through open windows. I hadn't been to a gallery in years, but tonight I parked behind a modest brick building between a bakery and yoga studio, slipped in quietly, and watched my painting. The threshold, hanging near the exit, a blend of earth tones and light breaking through gray, neither door nor wall but the moment in between. A woman in her 60s paused, studying the texture. Is this yours? She asked softly. I nodded. It made me feel like I could breathe again, like maybe it's not too late to begin. It's for sale, I said. That's the point, she smiled. No applause, no spotlight, just two women who understood what it means to start over. Later, Nia returned with jasmine tea. We clinked cups quietly. Figured you deserved a full circle moment. We sat by the gallery window as city lights blinked in the dusk. My phone buzzed. A message from my attorney. Eleanor accepted the plea. Kyle signed the waiver. It's done. Clean. No confetti, no music. Just done. The next afternoon, I drove north to the lake, carrying a tiny paper boat I'd folded myself, the divorce decree, and Kyle's ashes folded into a note. No boats, no children, just wind and water. I placed everything in the little boat, lit its edges, and pushed it into the lake. Flames danced against the cloud's reflection. I didn't pray or cry. I just watched until the smoke and ripples swallowed it whole. The following week, I returned to the gallery with 3 new paintings, signing my full name for the first time. Lena Ruth Vaughn, the name I was born with, the one I'd buried to make others comfortable, now reclaimed not out of spite but peace. No audience watched as I hung them. No ceremony, just nails, frames, and a signature steady enough to hold. I stepped back, breathed in the moment. I didn't need the world to know. I just needed to know I was still here. I used to think love meant sacrifice. Now I know it means knowing when to walk away, with grace, and without losing yourself. Have you ever felt erased in your own home, only to rebuild quietly into someone stronger? I'd love to hear your story. Tell me in the comments. I read everyone.